Hello, my fellow readers. It is I, Dark Symphony 777, with another fanfiction review. As always, a link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of the story. This is my opinion. My opinion is not indicative of the world. And finally, if you have any future fanfictions you want me to review, please leave them in the comment section as well. After 11 million years, or really just a year, this is it. The last fanfiction of 2024. It is Total Drama Infinite Bon Voyage. It really is a Bon Voyage for this year. It is a total drama and exofic by Mean King III. And I wanted to save the story for last of this year because, for one thing, this story has kind of been in the backlog for a while, since when I did hold on, we're gonna look this up. Infinite. I just realized that's an error. Yeah, since 2 years. I have been waiting to review this story for 2 years because the author actually wanted me to review this story pretty much almost immediately after I reviewed Infinite 2. So yes, 2 years it took to finally get a chance to review the story because this author was on very hiatus, and I think the author was inspired by Infinite to review to finish his story, because I remember in my Infinite 2 review I said the big thing with Infinite 3 is you need to figure out what's going to happen with Bon Voyage. You need to either reveal that it got canceled and they're just coming on, or finish the season. That was a big question mark going into Infinite 3. And he actually finished it. So I'm very proud of Mean King for saying that. Before I get into the review, I am going to say one thing. I will not be talking about Bernadetta. I will not be talking about Ryu, because I'm going to make, thanks to, I made a poll in the community, in a community post, asking for a part 2, because there is a specific part of the story that I want to cover separately in its own video that involves Ryu and Bernadetta, and everyone said yes. So I'm not going to talk about those two characters in this video because they're going to get their own video dedicated to them. So in case you're wondering why didn't I bring up those two, that's why. So let's get into the review. What is the plot? Well, it is your standard total drama story. You have a bunch of people from all across different dimensions all go on an adventure. Instead of dealing with Chris McLean, who honestly at this point is just kind of old hat, because literally all total dramas, all these total drama crossover fixed him to have Chris as a complete utter ass, which is canon. But come on, can we just get someone else? Instead of Chris, we get Don from the Redunculus race, who's basically who's a very kind person. He's supposed to be the opposite of Chris. He was offered, hey, you want to have a spin-off? Huh? And he's like, yeah, sure, we'll go for it. And he gets 26 players. Let's just see who we're getting. Kermit the Frog from the Muppets. Nice. Futaba Sakura from Persona 5, Draco Malfoy from Harry Potter, Karin Kazuki from Street Fighter, Rinosuke Umemura from Shaman King, Raven from Teen Titans, Yumi Sureko from Black Clover, Panty Anarch. That's actually her last name? What? Huh? Huh. Panty Anarchy from Panty and Stocking, Bender. The fact that Mean King didn't add his last name is kind of shameful. Try this one. Bender Rodriguez from Futurama, Tiff from Kirby Right Back at Ya, Pete from Disney, specifically Pete from Goof Troop, Nico Robin from One Piece, Gonard from Kappa Mikey, Bunny Rabbit from the Sonic Saturday AM Sat AM cartoon, not the Archie comics. Barry from Pokemon, it's the guy who has the Game Boy on. Maybe. Urza Scarlet from Fairy Tail, Light Yagini from Death Note, Shermie from King of Fighters, Lobo from DC Comics, Bernadetta von Barley from Fire Emblem Three Houses, Scott Pilgrim from Scott Pilgrim, Penny Parker from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Kronk from Emperor's New Groove, Yang from Ruby, Pit from Kid Icarus, Tifa Lockhart from Final Fantasy VII, and then later, and like very early in the story, we get Alucard from Helsing and someone named Percy. Well, I actually don't know if she's an original character or not. I really don't know where she's from. Honest to God, I don't know. And that is the crew. Now, it is kind of split into 3 arcs. The first arc is kind of the beginning arc. It starts from chapter 1 to chapter 11, and then the second arc is chapter 12 to chapter 20, and then the third arc is basically chapter 21 to 27. That's basically the three arcs. I will say that chapter arcs 1 and 2 are basically the standard total drama stuff. Arc 3, on the other hand, basically takes a page out of Total Drama Endless by doing the whole they get left behind and they have to try and find their way through each individual world. It is on paper a knockoff of what Total Drama Endless did, but it does enough differently that it's not a one-for-one recreation. There is other factors at play going on with that, so I'm not going to say it's a complete knockoff on that. But when it comes to the actual plot, it's fine. I don't have a problem because I think this is like a very basic total drama. There's not going to be any deep storytelling, minus one specific story beat throughout the story. Again, I'll talk about that in part 2. There is the Malfoy storyline, which I'll talk about that in a minute when I get to Malfoy. There is a lot of going on. What I like about Bon Voyage is I think it actually takes the best parts of what I like most about Infinite 1 and Infinite 2 and kind of combines them into trying to be. This is still a very fun plot. This still carries much like a traditional total drama vibe. There's a lot of neat details throughout the entire story. Like, for instance, with Kronk, you can actually see him, like, he's getting harassed by Yzma because he wants him to win. And he's also talking to, like, his shoulder angels at times. It's a very quirky story that still has that total drama charm to attach to it. I don't hate the plot. I will say, when it comes to the plot, certain plot beats that are very hit or miss. There is the Draco plot, which is actually pretty decent. I think that plot line is, while starting a little late because Malfoy's character arc only starts at about the halfway point. I think it's fine for what it is. Bernadetta's storyline, again, talk about that later. Then there's the main not that one. There's the McMonster arc, which is based off Mr. Beast, and I think that's fine. Then there is the whole the whole Dormant, what's that called? What is it called? Dormantion arc, which is the last arc. I'm not a fan of that. I do think it's trying to differentiate itself from Endless, but it kind of comes bumfuck out of nowhere, if I have to be honest. Because the main villain is just random Eldrick, about like random business cats who like wants to destroy the world, and it's just so out of nowhere. Like, give the other like original villain some credit. Namora was fine. I really like Gajira. Cruz. Cruz had the Black Hole Gang, which I think was fine. Uh, I honestly think out of like all the original villains, like the outside matter villains, this guy's kind of like the worst because because he doesn't really add anything to the story. I think he actually subtracts the story because the entire third arc kind of became like an ideological battle between Light and Futaba, with like Malfoy kind of stuck in the middle, and and he didn't really need this guy because it's trying to overcomplicate something that was actually working. That's my opinion. So, what do I have to say about the character? There are a lot of characters. On the whole, I think Bon Voyage has the best overall crew. Every single total drama, every single one of these crossover total drama fics I read, they always had like a couple stinkers. Like I think a third of the cast were like obvious cannon fodder, very flat characters that just didn't add anything. They were just there to fill up the numbers. But Bon Voyage, really the only characters I had a problem with was Gonard, who basically was just bland as hell. Even Karin, who got eliminated first, she had more character and personality than Gonard, so there was nothing really done with him. And the other character, and this is going to be very controversial, and I'm going to explain myself with this because this is going to be the big thing, and it's going to mention what if I'm going to recommend it or not. The other character I had a problem with was actually Futaba. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute, Futaba was fine. And to that, I answer yes. I didn't have a problem with Futaba as a character. My issue with Futaba is her role in the story. Let me explain. Futaba kind of starts as something of a side character. She's not really too important in the grand scheme of things. She does become slightly more important. She becomes kind of like Ryu's wingman in the Bernadetta storyline. But that's really it. She doesn't become an important figure because everything, like once we were getting near the near the merge, it was kind of obvious that it was probably going to be a three-way toss. It was probably going to be a three-way toss-up between Light. You can honestly make an argument that Light would actually win, despite being the villain. Ryu and Malfoy. Those were the three heavy picks that I think had the best chance of winning. Everyone else was kind of like they had shots at winning because that's another thing why I liked about Bon Voyage. The way every single character was written actually gave them like a realistic chance of winning. Like there wasn't no obvious like, oh, this character's cannon fodder, this character's this, except for maybe Pete because then he's kind of like the butt monkey in the group. He kind of where it makes sense, but there was a lot of people you could really choose from. The issue was once the merge happened, Futaba kind of was not only was Futaba kind of shoved past everyone else and kind of became the main character of the story, the author got a little persona boner. And the story stopped becoming a total drama fan fiction and became a persona fan fiction. I don't know what Mean King was thinking when deciding this fact when deciding this. Why is that important? Well, it presented a no-win situation because the finalists were Draco Malfoy, who won, and Futaba Sakura, who was in second. This presented such a Chinese finger trap scenario because the entire story, once they started the door mention arc, everything was kind of pointing towards Futaba winning, which wouldn't be that bad if not for the fact that one, it was so blindingly obvious the author pushed her into main character, despite the fact she didn't really offer anything significant to the story. And two, the fact that the entire arc was literally riddled with persona motifs. Arcana Force, the Jack Frost shows up, the fact that the main villain has a persona, and Nyarla Throat, Draco gets a persona. There's the fact that the Phantom Thieves are heavily involved with the arc. It was basically it was Leo from Everything 2 levels of shilling. It's basically Meme was making it so blindingly obvious. Futaba's gonna. This is Futaba's story now. Like how most of Infinite 2 was the Edward story. It basically became Futaba's adventure or bust as he rallies everyone around her. This presented a problem because now Meme is now in an unwinnable situation. You let Futaba win, it becomes obvious that you let her win because of blatant bias, which would tank the victory. Let Draco win, and you make it obvious that Draco only really won because you wanted to avoid the bias. It creates such an artificial situation, especially when you look at the context. Technically, Futaba won because despite the fact Draco beat the bad guy, he literally was passed out. Technically, Futaba was the last one standing. There's not even an explanation of why Malfoy won besides he beat the bad guy, which doesn't make any sense because there were like several eliminations where like, oh, the other person kind of just like Yami said like, oh, I'm gonna take this guy out. I'm probably not gonna make it. There you go. Draco, not Draco. Yeah, Malfoy Pat was knocked out. It just the fact that he got knocked out kind of or tainted the victory in and of itself because now he kind of technically won because Futaba just possibly just said no. And then when Malfoy did win and he got the $5 million, he said, I don't need it anymore. I don't need it because I'm already rich. Despite the fact his entire character arc was centered around the fact that he wanted to become more humble and learn to stick up for himself. Like, his father's in jail. I think his mother's in jail too, either in jail or dead. He's like, it kind of, it just doesn't really make sense once you look at it scrutinally. And I think with Malfoy's character specifically, that it fits Malfoy's character. Like the whole idea of like him becoming humble. Okay, that works. Even Futaba's character is fine in of itself. It's just when you get Futaba's unexpected ascension to main character plus all the shilling, it creates just this sort of vibe that you're just waiting for Futaba to win. Or if she doesn't win, it's gonna be a cop out and a swerve for the sake of a swerve because the entire story, that entire arc was just dedicated, centered around Futaba winning. You can't there's just no win. If you wanted to go this route, you could have, I don't know, just not made a Persona fanfiction because it's just a Persona fanfiction at this point, or you get rid of the door, you keep the door mention thing, but you have the finale be, I don't know, Malfoy and Light, because that would actually, honestly, that would make the most sense as like a finale. Light Yagami versus Draco Malfoy, the god who wants to win, who wants to prove superiority over everyone, versus the now humbled Slytherin who wants to possibly fix his family's name, and he wants to do it, and by winning legitimately and proving he can finish, he can actually start it. I think that would have been a much better finals than even like Terry and Mio, because there would have been, not only would have been legitimate stakes because you have Malfoy's character getting ready to start, there is still a doubt that Light was just was such a well written villain that he realistically could have just taken the victory from Malfoy's grasp. It would have created a extremely tense situation where you legitimately don't know who would have won. But with the way it is now, it just, it is either Futaba or not, or nothing. It, I don't with the, and that's not even getting into the other characters. Chubbs is, again, like I said, worst villain, worst original villain. He's generic. He's just a generic cat demon. The rest of the characters, I like Pete. He was the butt monkey. Kronk was very fun. Um, Shermie, I think, was fine. I really like Pit. I like Panty. I like Yagami. I don't think he's the. I think he's probably like the middle of the road. I still think Coil's probably the weakest of the infinite villains. Dio, I do think Dio slightly edges out Light, but I think, I don't know. Give it time. I may say Light is better than Dio, mainly because Light is actually treated seriously, and he was the only of the three villains that actually had a realistic shot of winning. There was Alucard. Alucard was pretty fun. He was kind of goof. He was a very serious goof. Percy, Bender, just every single character that wasn't Gonard was even enjoyable. Even Futaba. I like Futaba. I think Futaba was a great character. I just don't like the circumstances surrounding her. Uh, Grammar. I You need to get an editor. I don't know what happened between this story and Infinite 2, but it seems like you just lost an editor. Like, this fan fiction is so riddled with grammar errors. It rivals Total Drama Cruise, and that story had so many grammar errors that I don't think you want to be compared to Cruise. You don't want to. Well, prefixed Cruise. Oh, it's so bad. Let's go. Let's just move on. Pacing wise, I think it's paced really well. It does have a lot of speedy issues, but they're paced moderately better, especially in the second half. In the first act, everything until the One Piece chapter, it was ridiculously fast. But that's because the author was still learning at the time. Once he got past the hiatus, the author managed to learn to pace everything better. So I have to at least thank Meme for getting better at it, getting better at writing, and having a lot more fun with it. There is a sense of gives you this general sense of fun in most of the story. I think the second arc is probably the best part of the story. Just the entire middle arc, except for that second half of the One Piece chapter, because it kind of still has a lot of the holdover issues from the first part because of that. But everything from the baseball chapter to right before the door mention was actually really fun and had a lot of enjoyable aspect to it. I have nothing really else to say about this. Would I recommend this story? That's a hard one because I do genuinely like a lot of aspects about the story. I think it, like I said, has a good cast. It's very fun. It improves upon the formula of Total Drama of Infinite One and Infinite Two. The entire Bernie side plot was really good. The Malfoy plot was actually pretty good. Like there is a lot to like, but at the same time, the incredibly bad beginning, like the beginning is like really clunky. It really needs an editor. And also the whole situation, that final arc involving Futaba, everything just around Futaba really dragged down those last couple chapters. It's a very hard story to whether or not to recommend because you have the first half, which is bad because of the author still kind of learning the ropes. You have the second act, which is really good, and you have the third act is, while still good, is hampered by persona bias. You know what? I am going to recommend this. I'm going to recommend this story with a hell of an asterisk, but I'm going to recommend this story. I do think the pros slightly outweigh the cons. I do think this is a good story. However, the fact that you have to get it, you have to get through all of Act One, and the fact that didn't work on Act One. He didn't like during the hiatus that he was on. He didn't edit those chapters and clean them up and didn't work on them. Leaves a hell of a bad impression on people who probably read it. It it makes the story hard to get into. When it gets going, it gets pretty good. But the fact that those first 10 or so chapters are just so unbearably bad, just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And I can at least ignore the whole Futaba thing. Despite the fact how much I complained about it, I can move past the persona bias because that happened at the end of the story, and it it really it's just on the at that point. You know what? Why didn't you just make a Persona fanfiction? If you wanted to do so much with Persona, why didn't you just make a Persona fanfiction? Just why? And that being said, the second arc was great. It had a lot of fun moments. You can kind of get like a nitpicky with like the constant non-standard eliminations, but I think that's very minor. The Futaba thing I can forgive to a point. It's really that very clunky beginning that really that really nearly sinks this story into not recommending it. Favorite part? Uh-uh. What would I change? First off, get an editor, clean up this story. Just blanket clean it. Second off, these every single thing from here to here. First off, get rid of this, and get rid of this because you don't need them anymore. Um, Basically, I think they need to be rewritten. You don't have to because this is just what I would do. You don't have to follow this. I do think these chapters need to be rewritten because they are really that clunkily written. And I think you just need to bring them up to standard with the rest of the story. That's really it. Let's see. Where is? There's one other specific chapter I wanted. Where was it? I gotta find. I gotta actually find it. It was the singing chapter. No, this is. I'm trying to remember where. Oh, right here. This chapter. This is something I think is more basic. Okay. The next one, my next fix is actually related to the songs. I don't have a problem with the songs itself. The issue is the fact that since there are multiple people doing karaoke because it's the karaoke challenge, I would say just edit this so that way you could at least tell who is singing which lines. So like here would be like, oh, it's Rio singing, or I don't know, Shermie or Futa or uh, Rio, Shermie, and the third, whoever. I think no Kronk. So like, you can like you tell who's singing which, or if like multiple are singing, you just put them. You just put them in like script writing. It wouldn't take that long. You just change. You just add names. That's really it. And that's really what I would change with this. Like the song itself, I think it's fine. Although just I can't picture this song without thinking of Koishi. I that's Koishi completely ruined that song. The last thing I would actually fix is the entire Chubbs plot. I don't mind the whole door mention thing. You wanna do your own take on the second half of Endless? Go right ahead. But I still think it should just be the standard. They get eliminated and kind of leave behind, and eventually end with Light versus Malfoy. I do think this was the finale that made the most sense narrative wise because of Malfoy's character arc that was taking place, of him realizing that I'm working for Light. It's no better than working for Voldemort because I realize how fucking evil Light is. I want to try and beat him to prove my worth, prove that the Malfoy name can be worth something, and humbling himself. And you can even do the whole, oh, he still keeps the money, except for Light. He doesn't get any money. Fuck you. It's I, it's just astounding. Like just make a Persona fan fiction meme. I talk to you all the time. You don't have to do these total drama stories forever. Make something else if you want. Like if you're so focused on making a story about Futaba and the Phantom Thieves, just go ahead. Just have them do like a silly little adventure. And it's it's just so weird. Like that's the issue. The more I think about it, the more I think about just the blatant Persona boner that meme has in that last arc, the worse it gets, which really stings because oh, I don't want to think about it anymore because uh, mm, no. I'm gonna try and wipe them from mine. I will, like I said, I think the story on the whole is good. It's his best work, but it really needs polish. Yeah, I don't really have anything more to say until the second half, until that second part, and that's not gonna be for a couple days. I'm gonna do that on Friday. So this has been Dark Symphony 777. I hope you have a good 2025 rest of the year. I will be finishing up, trying to finish up the gaming stuff, as well as I'm going to do my top 10 with my friend. Hopefully, if he agrees to it. I don't know for sure. Well, this has been Dark Symphony 777, and cut.